Greetings, everyone. Today we're going to do some math and economics to disprove this latest slander against Game Pass. Now, I'm not dick riding Microsoft. As you all well know, I was hating on Phil Spencer before it was popular to do so because the man opened his mouth and proved he didn't know what the hell he was doing. I was saying that back when it was popular to still dick ride the man. So I don't want to hear no slander call me a bot. Let's get into this. Game Pass is profitable because Microsoft doesn't count costs for first-party games on the service. Okay. You don't count your costs twice, and we'll get into that more towards the end of this segment, but just keep that in mind. You're going to count how much revenue Game Pass makes versus how much revenue the game division makes, and then compare that to how much it's costing overall. If the gaming division overall is making more money than it is spending, and Game Pass is factored into that, then Game Pass is profitable. It's simple math. But let's do some more math. Game Pass is projected to make $5.5 billion this year. Let's say that holds steady. No increases, no decreases. So how many games could you make off of $5.5 billion? Well, the average game costs between 50 and 200 millions when it's AAA status. So let's just take the highest number there to make the most unfair, unbalanced math possible to make the worst case the default case, 300 million. So you take $5.5 billion. You can't see me using the calculator. And you divide it by 0.3 for 300 million. And Game Pass can finance in 1 year 18 AAA games at 300 million. Games do not take 1 year to make. They generally go to 3 to 5 years to make. So let's just say 5 years, and you multiply 5.5 by that, and you have $27.5 billion. And we divide that by the 300 million, and you can make 91 AAA games. How many games does Xbox have in development at this moment? In a statement from Matt Booty, he said over 40. So Game Pass by itself can pay for 91 AAA games over 5 years. This is not factoring in sales of the game, DLC of the game, no other factor. Game Pass by itself can finance 91 AAA games every 5 years if it maintains steady and does not grow or shrink. So right there, we already got 40 plus projects covered. Game Pass is profitable. But we hop over here to the financial statements. And remember when I said at the beginning of this segment, you don't double count your costs. Because you don't. Now you can see here, Microsoft is posting a profit, and they generally always do. And they note that the cost revenue increased $8.3 billion, and this is from 2024, because of the Activision acquisition. It doesn't say it right there, but they talk about it in other places in this financial report. And we scroll down further. Now keep in mind, more personal computing is what Xbox's revenue goes into. And they make $62 billion in 2024. And we scroll further down here. And we can see research and development expenses increased $9.3 billion, driven by the Activision Blizzard acquisition. This is what I was talking about. Research and development across the entire company. This is not isolated to making video games. Is $29.51 billion. Now let's scroll back up here. How much did more personal computing make? $62.032 billion. Because this is all in millions. Thus, Game Pass is profitable. Because you're not going to count your development costs, which are going to put up against your, income from all these divisions. So that's actually going up against $245.122 billion, not just more personal computing, which Xbox is part of. You're not going to then take the same development costs and then put them against just Game Pass, because Game Pass is not the only income for the gaming division. And unfortunately, no, there is no actual breakdown of gaming division's expenditures. I looked, but if we add up all of the operating expenses, we get $61.575 billion. That includes marketing and general administration. Remember when I talk about bloat? But we can scroll all the way down. Let's actually just speed this up. Man, this is actually taking longer than I thought it would. And we actually can see that gaming made $21.503 billion in 2024. Now, if we take 40, and pop back up my calculator here. Let's say 45 games, and you times that times 300 million, you got 13.5 billion. Over the course of 3 years, which we know games take about 5 years now, the game division makes $64.5 billion. There's a bit more, it's actually $64.509 billion. But 3 years, it is covering the cost of all development and marketing. So gaming overall for Microsoft is a profitable venture when you just do basic economics, basic math at the expenditure costs of development and marketing. We don't know the marketing costs, but we do know Microsoft is making a profit. And we have heard before that the Xbox division is profitable. It's just not as profitable as Microsoft would like it to be. Thus, Game Pass is profitable despite the claims to the contrary, because it is a revenue income that adds to the whole gaming division. You cannot then say, oh, Game Pass is not profitable because we're not counting the cost, because in order to do that math, you would need to take, okay, how much does the game cost? How much did we make in sales? How much did we make in DLC sales? Then you're going to take that and see how much money you made off of Game Pass in order to justify whether or not that game was profitable based on Game Pass alone. You cannot simply take all the expenses of the game and then compare it to the Game Pass revenue, because it has other avenues of making money. Thus, this is just pointless hate, and the people saying this just don't know what they're talking about. And that's all there's to say about this. Like, subscribe. I'll see you in the next video. Peace out.